Hello and welcome to Smoke Mayor's Gaming and Car Talk. Now, a while ago I played my space rolls in a 2000 point game against some Chaos Knights. You can find the battle report of that video on my channel, but it didn't go very well. Now, I thought I had quite tanky units, and I thought I had some quite decent anti-tank in there, but we didn't actually manage to destroy a single knight. Could have been partly bad rolling, could have been a bad list for the game, could have been my strategy, could have been very good luck on my opponent's side. But after I'd played that game, I next played a game of Battle Sisters against a tanky-ish Grey Knight team, and I found that actually Morven Val and the Paragons seemed to be very, very good at dealing damage. And I did some sums and I found that actually it seems like if those units had charged into the same Chaos Knights that I had a lot of trouble taking down, they should make absolute mincemeat of them. They should be doing, on average, well more than enough wounds to take down something like a Knight Despoiler, as you'll see in the video where I did the maths on that. So the question I was asking myself with this video is, if I do the maths and look at the actual average rolls and probabilities and chances, should I have been able to take down the knight with my long fangs? So this is a squad's original mod. We've got 4 last cannons and a guy with a melter gun. The dogs are proxy for an Armorium Cherub. And again, they perform fairly well. I was playing them in 9th. Now that we're in 10th, I managed to add an extra guy to the squad. So we've got 5 last cannons. And the Terminator is basically a wolf guard pack leader, just to give the squad a bit more meat and another means of putting some damage out. And again, they were hiding in the ruins, shooting at this large knight, while Bjorn and the last cannon Dreadnought were having a crack at it too. These are the stats. We've got, for the long fans, movement 6, toughness 4, 3 plus save, 2 wounds. They're the important ones. And the pack leader's got 5 movement, toughness 5, 4 wounds because of the storm shield, but it does sacrifice a melee attack for that. And then on the knight we've got toughness 12, 3 plus save, with a 5 plus invul and 22 wounds. Those are the key stats. Moving on, we're looking at the actual attacks now. So the pack leader with the assault cannon is going to get 6 shots, hitting on 3s. It's going to average out at 4 hits. With the fire discipline rerolls, you're looking at 0.68 extra hits, and if you're using Oath of Moment rerolls, you're potentially looking at 0.88 for a total of 5.56 wounds. Not entirely sure if you're allowed to use fire discipline and Oath of Moment, because there's something about not rerolling rerolls, but if theoretically, hypothetically, if you were, you'd be looking at 0.95 successful wound rolls out of that, to give you a total of nearly 1 wound. So potentially you could deal 1 wound with the guy with the assault cannon. Obviously, because it's wounding on a 6, that's going to be a devastating wound, so there can be no save allowed as well. Moving on to the melter gun, you've got 1 attack, 3s to hit, so you're going to average 0.7. With the rerolls, you might possibly increase your chance of getting that hit, but it's not that much. It's at most you're going to be 1 hit, but even that, you're relying on a little bit of luck to get that 1 in. Then you're needing a 5 plus with wound roll, which is going to save on a 0.31 successful. So your total successful wound roll is 0.31, saving on your 5. It's going to mean that with a 5.5 average damage if you're within melter range, so it's melter 2 plus 3.5 average on a d6 gives you a total damage of 1.7 to factor in from the melter gun. Your last cannons, we've got 5 obviously, would be hitting on 4s. If you're stationary, they'd be down to 3s, so that would be better. If you had to move to get your shot in, you're talking at 2.5 hits. With your rerolls, you're potentially getting that up to more like 3, perhaps 4 hits, depending on where you are, whether you're allowed to use things like fire discipline, Oath of Moment at the same time, and whether you can then use, for example, you could turn around and say, well, you want to use the Iron Spearhead reroll for that hit, but you probably wouldn't. You'd probably save that for the wound. Potentially you look at 2.5 successful wound rolls on that, because you're wounding on a 4+ for that. That's going to mean with your reroll for Iron Spearhead, potentially 3 or 4 hits are going to get through. D6 plus 1 damage, so it's going to be like an average of 4.5 damage. So 17.8 is about the sort of max you can expect from that volley with sort of normal average rolling. Melee weapons aren't going to do much. They're going to be wounding on 6s, both the power axe and the close combat weapons. Even if you had a power fist, you'd still be wounding on a 6, not doing a lot of damage, so it hardly factors in. And when you take everything into account and you assume that you have a best case scenario for the range at which you're shooting, and you've got the facility to use Oath of Moment, Iron Spearhead for your rerolls, and your fire discipline, and you can reroll some hits and reroll a wound, realistically, average luck, you should potentially be able to do knocking on the door of 20 wounds to that knight, which isn't actually enough. You've got 22 wounds. They've probably got some shenanigans that they can play to reduce the number of wounds to take. They've got 5+ invul. You can't do anything about that. If you could charge him beyond melee, you might be able to finish him off. That's a strength 12, I think, with a couple of attacks and some AP. But actually, was I unlucky when I was playing this game? A little bit. When I was throwing everything I had at this thing, I think we got it down to about 8 wounds. Given that I was also shooting at it with a Storm Raven with the melter gun and assault cannons, and the Iron Priest and Bjorn and everything was given, everything that got into that, and it didn't take it down. Looking at the maths, it looks like either I was a bit unlucky or my opponent was a bit lucky. What can I do that would give me better anti-tank, more like the level of Morven Val, the Paragons and my space rolls? Hard to say. Probably the obvious option is maybe put a Gladiator Lancer in there, possibly taking out the Sniper Scouts who are in Legend anyway, and dropping one of the Wolf Guard pack leaders, possibly the one with the long fangs, could be more of a long range squad. They probably don't need him so much, and that's probably how I should play it in the long run if I'm playing my space rolls against some tankier enemies. So the conclusion really is, yes, the long fangs are quite good anti-tank. I was a bit unlucky, but actually, if you're facing some really seriously heavy armour, you probably want a bit more anti-tank and a bit better anti-tank. Hope you found it interesting anyway, and thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and if there's any particular units you'd like me to do some maths on, just drop me a comment. Thanks.